Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something pretty significant that came up recently in Geneva.
Right, at the BRS Conventions Conference.
Exactly. There was this proposal to ban the pesticide chlorpyrifos globally under the Stockholm Convention, but India pushed back.
Yeah, strongly opposed it. Their argument basically hinges on, well, two main things. No good alternatives readily available, and the potential hit to food security.
Which really sets the stage, doesn't it? It highlights this tension between global environmental goals and, national needs, especially agricultural ones.
Absolutely. So today we're going to unpack chlorpyrifos, what it is, its effects, and also get into the Stockholm Convention itself.
And hopefully understand India's position a bit better. Our main source for this, by the way, is DTE, Down to Earth.
Right.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Chlorpyrifos, what exactly are we dealing with here?
Okay, so chlorpyrifos is an organophosphate insecticide. That's the chemical family it belongs to.
Organophosphate.
Okay. Yeah, phosphorus-based structure. It's used, well, very widely in farming to protect crops, lots of different crops. And it also has uses in public health and termites, mosquitoes, that sort of thing.
Got it. So broad applications, how does it actually, kill the pests? What's the mechanism?
It works on the nervous system. Specifically, it messes with an enzyme called acetylcholinesterase.
Acetylcholinesterase, okay.
Right. This enzyme is crucial for nerve signal transmission. It basically cleans up the chemical messengers after a nerve fires. Chlorpyrifos blocks this enzyme.
So the signal keeps firing, like a jammed switch.
Exactly like that. It leads to overstimulation of the nerves in insects, paralysis, and, well, eventually death.
Okay, sounds very effective against bugs. But immediately you think, what about us? What about other animals?
That's the core concern, absolutely. Exposure for humans can happen through the skin, breathing it in, or ingesting it, maybe residues on food.
And the effects?
They range. Short term, you might get headaches, feel nauseous, dizzy, muscle cramps. Pretty unpleasant stuff.
And more severe cases?
Can lead to paralysis, serious breathing problems. It's quite potent.
The DTZ piece mentioned something about a toxic byproduct.
Ah, yes. Chlorpyrifos auxin. When the body metabolizes chlorpyrifos, it can convert it into this auxin form, which is actually even more effective at inhibiting that crucial enzyme.
So it becomes more toxic inside the body.
In essence, yes. That auxin form is largely responsible for the really harmful effects.
Okay, so direct health risks are clear. What about its environmental footprint? How does it behave out there?
Well, it's persistent. That's a key issue. It can stick around in soil for weeks, sometimes even years.
Years, wow.
Yeah, it depends on conditions like soil type, temperature, moisture. It breaks down slower in acidic soils, interestingly.
And does it move around, like into water?
It can, yeah. Soil erosion is a pathway. If contaminated soil washes into rivers or lakes, then you've got potential water contamination, which obviously impacts aquatic life.
And it's not just about persistence, right? The sources mention toxicity to other non-target organisms.
Definitely. The DTE report specifically flags its high toxicity to birds. I think robins and mallards were examples.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Also fish, bees, crucial pollinators, of course, and even earthworms, which are vital for soil health. So it's hitting a lot of unintended targets in the ecosystem.
And there's this issue of it building up in the food chain.
Right. Bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So it builds up in an organism's tissues over time, bioaccumulation.
Okay.
Then, when a predator eats many organisms containing chlorpyrifos, the concentration increases as you go up the food chain. That's biomagnification.
So animals higher up can end up with much higher doses.
Exactly, which is a serious concern for ecosystems and potentially for humans who consume organisms from affected environments.
Given all this, how much is chlorpyrifos actually used in India?
It's significant. The IPN report that DTE cited mentioned it accounted for, I think, 9.4% of total insecticide use back in 2016-17.
Nearly 10%. That's a lot.
It suggests really widespread application in Indian agriculture. And it's been registered for use there for a long time, since 1977, under the Insecticides Act.
Wow. Okay. And how is it classified hazard-wise?
The WHO labels it moderately hazardous. The US EPA considers it a possible carcinogen.
A possible carcinogen. And are there signs of exposure in India?
Yes. The DTE article points out that residues have been found in produce, in water, even in human blood samples and breast milk.
That's concerning, finding it in breast milk particularly.
It really underscores the pervasiveness and the potential for human exposure.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the international context. The Stockholm Convention. What is this treaty fundamentally about?
So the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, POPs, is a global agreement. Adopted 2001, came into force 2004.
Okay.
Its whole purpose is to protect human health and the environment from these specific chemicals, POPs, that are particularly nasty.
And how does it try to achieve that? What are the mechanics?
It uses annexes, basically lists. Annex A is for chemicals slated for elimination. Think really bad actors like aldrin, chlordane, DDT in some uses, PCBs, stuff like that.
Total phase out.
Right. Then Annex B is for restriction limit production and use. And Annex C deals with unintentionally produced POPs like dioxins, aiming to reduce their release.
And how does it support countries, especially developing ones, in meeting these goals? It must be costly sometimes.
It is. There's a financial mechanism. The Global Environments Facility, the GEF, is the main channel for providing financial aid.
To help with things like finding alternatives, phasing out production.
Exactly. Technical assistance, capacity building, funding projects to manage or destroy stockpiles.
And India's relationship with the convention.
India ratified it back in 2006, so it's legally bound by its provisions.
Okay.
And to implement it domestically, India brought in the regulation of persistent organic pollutants rules in 2018 under the Environment Protection Act. So there's a national framework, too.
We keep mentioning POPs, persistent organic pollutants. Can we just drill down a bit more? What defines these chemicals?
Sure. So BOPs are toxic, carbon-based chemicals. The key things that make them POPs are, well, persistence. They don't break down easily in the environment.
They stick around.
For a long, long time. They also resist degradation processes. And critically, they bioaccumulate. They build up in the fatty tissues of living things.
Because they're fat-soluble, not water-soluble.
Precisely. They don't get flushed out easily. So toxic, persistent, and they accumulate. It's a dangerous combination.
And the health and environmental impacts stemming from these properties.
They're wide-ranging and serious. We're talking links to cancer, immune system problems, neurotoxicity affecting the brain and nerves, reproductive issues, endocrine disruption, messing with hormones.
Endocrine disruption sounds particularly insidious.
It is. It can interfere with development and function in very fundamental ways. And these effects aren't just immediate. They can be chronic, long-term, and even pass across generations.
Right. And you mentioned bioaccumulation and biomagnification again, just to reinforce that.
Yeah, it's central to POPs. They build up in individual organisms, bioaccumulation, and then concentrations get magnified higher up the food chain, biomagnification.
So apex predators, including humans potentially, get the highest dose.
Correct. And considering Chlorpyrifos has been found in various samples in India, this whole biomagnification pathway is a significant potential concern, even if it's hard to track precisely.
Are there other POPs besides Chlorpyrifos and the ones in Annex A that have a particular resonance or history in India?
Well, endosulfan comes to mind, another pesticide, potent endocrine disruptor, banned in many places, but India phased it out relatively recently after quite a bit of debate and resistance.
I remember the endosulfan controversy.
And then there's DDT, probably the most famous POP, banned for agriculture in India ages ago, but still used for vector control.
Mosquito spraying for malaria prevention.
Exactly, which again shows that difficult balancing act, a known, persistent, harmful chemical versus a pressing public health need.
It really highlights the complexities these decisions involve.
Absolutely.
So let's circle back fully to Chlorpyrifos and India's opposition to the global ban proposal. Given everything we've discussed, the risks, the POP characteristics, the convention, what's the core rationale again?
India's stated reasons remain. The lack of easily available, equally effective, and crucially affordable alternatives for farmers, and the connected worry about impacting agricultural output, which translates directly to food security concerns.
So it's a practical concern about farming realities on the ground.
Very much so. While the science on the risks is strong, for a nation managing a huge agricultural sector feeding over 1 billion people, the immediate impact of removing a widely used tool without a clear, accessible replacement, that's a massive consideration.
It's not just about finding an alternative, but one that works within the existing economic and infrastructure context for potentially millions of farmers.
Precisely. Access to newer, perhaps more expensive alternatives, the need for different application techniques, training. These are all real barriers that might make a rapid transition very challenging.
It really underscores the differing perspectives in global negotiations, doesn't it? Developed countries might have more resources, more readily available tech to make these shifts.
Whereas developing nations are often juggling environmental goals with very immediate economic development and social welfare needs, like food production, it's a classic tension in international environmental governance.
And Chlorpyrifos being a POP just adds another layer of complexity to India's position within the Stockholm framework.
It really does.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, we looked at the proposed global ban on Chlorpyrifos. We examined the chemical itself, an organophosphate insecticide with known health and environmental risks, acting as a persistent organic pollutant.
Right. We also discussed the Stockholm Convention, the international treaty designed to tackle these POPs, and India's participation in it.
And critically, we explored why India is opposing this specific ban, focusing on the arguments around agricultural alternatives and food security.
Yeah, it really brings home how interconnected these areas are. Environmental rules, public health, farming practices, national economics, especially for a country like India.
And this leads to a key thought for you, our listeners, particularly those of you preparing for UPSC or similar exams. Thinking about how nations, especially developing ones, navigate these complex international agreements is vital. How do you balance global environmental commitments with very real, very specific national needs in areas like agriculture and food security? It's not simple.
No easy answers there. It requires looking at the science, the economics, the social impacts, the policy levers, all of it.
Exactly. So analyzing these situations from multiple angles, understanding the different pressures and priorities at play, that's crucial for grasping contemporary governance issues.
That's definitely valuable for your preparation and understanding of current affairs.
If you found this discussion helpful, please do like and subscribe for more deep dives into important topics. And we really encourage you to leave comments or questions below. We do read them and appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just a reminder, our primary source for today's conversation was DTE, Down to Earth. Thanks for joining us.